You know, my grandfather was at Pearl Harbor, and a lot of my family has given up, you know, has gone and fought in wars, and I really haven't done a damn thing as far as laying myself on the line like that. And so I have a great deal of respect for those that have and what the flag stands for.
You know, Pat was one of those people who had that internal drive. He was very passionate about the things that he did and was the type of person who didn't stop.
Pat stood for many things. He certainly stood for doing what was right and doing what you believed.
Pat didn't look at joining the military as a sacrifice. It was more about an opportunity to be a part of this community and to really focus his life on something that was very meaningful to him. I knew after Pat was killed that I wanted to do something positive in his memory. I was lucky to have this opportunity to start the foundation. And in starting it, I knew that I really wanted it to be about the way that he lived his life.
Pat was a lifelong learner, seeking new information, anxious to learn and to grow and to expand. And I think that we see that with our scholars as well, that there's that determination and passion.
I carry Pat Tillman's legacy with me every single day. I want to embody the same passion and the same service to the nation and the ability to take that leap.
What matters is how you make people feel and how you impact people's lives. And I think that the Tillman community gets that.
Pat Tillman's name is held in such high regard. I think it's really important that I push forward and work hard every day to try and do as much as I possibly can to live up to that name.
I think that all of our scholars have a huge opportunity to have an impact in their chosen fields, and collectively we see them as a force to be reckoned with, that they're going to go out there in the world and have a huge impact in all these different areas, and there's going to be this ripple effect.
These men and women are going to change our nation and our world for the better.
I love that video. Welcome to the 2020 celebration of Tillman Honors. This is our third annual event highlighting the values that guided Pat's life and continue guiding our foundation. We also honor the impact that our Tillman scholars continue to have in the world. My name is Alex Garwood, and I'm Pat Tillman's brother-in-law, and I co-founded the Pat Tillman Foundation with Marie, Pat's family, and friends after his death in 2004. It's an honor to be here today as your MC and to celebrate Pat's legacy as it lives on through the perseverance and passion of the Tillman scholars. My wife, Christine, and Marie Tillman are sisters, so we were all smart enough to marry our high school sweethearts. And candidly, aside from being a dad and all that goes with that, my earned friendship with Pat is the most meaningful thing I've ever known in my life. And it was certainly true during his life when he was with us, and it remains so now. And it's exemplified in times like this when we gather. So thank you for being here today and honoring my friend. And ordinarily, we would be together in Chicago for this event with Tillman scholars joining your tables as we present our Champion and Make Your Mark Awards this year to John Feal, John Stewart, and Jackie Munn. But 2020 had other plans for us, so we can't all be together. So with that in mind, I appreciate you fighting through your Zoom fatigue to join us in this virtual event. And more than ever, we want to thank you for your support of our mission and of uniting and empowering our remarkable veterans and military spouses as the next generation of public and private sector leaders. And this year has taught us just how much leadership matters. Leadership we develop and see reflected in our nearly 700 Tillman scholars. And today's celebration would not be possible without the incredible generosity of our presenting sponsors, the NFL and Tech Systems, in empowering the Tillman scholar community. Please join me in welcoming Marie, our board chair, co-founder, and my friend, to say a few words about our mission.
Thank you, Alex. I'm excited to welcome you to Tillman Honors. And while it looks a little bit different this year, it's with that same excitement that we're happy to have you here. We're honored that you've chosen to join us as we celebrate Pat's legacy and how it lives through the Tillman scholars. Today we celebrate the impact and tenacity of our honorees, our champions, John Stewart and John Feal, our Make Your Mark awardee, Jackie Munn, a 2015 Tillman Scholar, our 3 Make Your Mark talkers, and other guest speakers. I want to thank John and John for joining us today and for their leadership in securing healthcare and a victims' compensation fund for all 9/11 first responders. This effort took nearly 15 years, but came to fruition through their unwavering advocacy on behalf of those heroes who gave so much. Thank you for your perseverance and your commitment to service as you now bring light to the challenges that veterans with toxic burn pit injuries face. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank Jackie Munn, a proud 2015 Tillman Scholar, and her family as they join us today. As a public health nurse practitioner, she aided her country as it grappled with the coronavirus, balancing her professional responsibilities while managing remote learning for her son, as her husband, a former Green Beret, was away for work. What I am struck by in the leadership you have shown throughout your career and through this pandemic is the importance of finding the heroism in every day, consistently doing the right thing over and over. You embody Pat's values, leading by example, uniting others, and advancing ideas that change the world. With that, I want to take a moment to reflect on the challenges that this year has brought us, and there have been many. From the pandemic to hard conversations on race and environmental disasters and a polarized election cycle. In our darkest moments, these challenges feel insurmountable. But I choose, as I often do, to find inspiration in how our scholars have approached adversity and how they refuse to accept the status quo. That gives us all hope for a brighter tomorrow. That sense of tenacity is why we honor John, and Jackie. They don't give up, no matter what challenges lay in front of them. All three understand that supporting one another and fighting for what is right needs to go beyond words. It needs to lead to action, which I see in our nearly 700 Tillman Scholars embrace every day. Their leadership and the potential I see in our scholars to bring that leadership to their own communities and the world makes us proud to continue our mission. That mission would not be possible without the generosity and support of everyone here today. Thank you so much for empowering our Tillman community to continue to serve at home and around the world. I'd like to now introduce Dan Futrell, CEO of the Pat Tillman Foundation and a 2011 Tillman Scholar.
Thanks, Marie, for your words and for your leadership. Now, I want to take a moment to thank those who make our work possible. And I'd like to talk for a brief moment about the people and the organizations that believe in our work. Pat and the life that he lived, the decisions he made, and the relationships he nurtured, and the challenges he embraced, all give us a model of what's possible from our Tillman Scholars. Our supporters see the potential in our scholars, and they see the need in the world for leadership that is driven by values and character, and a commitment to selfless service. Organizations like the National Football League and the Arizona Cardinals, who saw the leadership potential in Pat and decided to invest in him, continue to see the potential in the living legacy of scholars who are serving on the front lines of a global pandemic and who are building bridges in tough conversations around racism and racial justice in our country. Organizations like Tech Systems, who have been so dedicated and committed to finding new ways to engage with us and support Tillman Scholars and their impact, and so many other organizations like the Thompson Family Foundation and Arizona State University and more, who believe that leadership matters, and that Tillman Scholars, through their uniform service, as well as their commitment to continued service in a broad array of roles, will make an outsized impact with our support, especially in times like these. We have big ambitions for the Pat Tillman Foundation, and we believe we can do so much more to amplify the leadership and the impact of our scholar community in the years to come. As a Tillman Scholar and as our CEO, thank you sincerely for your support and for your belief in our work and our potential. I'll turn it back over to Alex.
Thank you, Dan. And now more than ever, we're very grateful for your leadership, particularly as you guide us through the challenges this year. You're an amazing representation of what a Tillman Scholar is and continues to be. And while Tillman Honors is an opportunity for us to recognize our champion and make your mark awardees, as we will later in the event, it's also a time for us to acknowledge the breadth and importance of the leadership and impact shown by our Tillman Scholars. And so each year we select 3 Tillman Scholars to offer a short presentation on their research and work. These are known as Make Your Mark Talks, and these conversations highlight the range of fields and communities in which the Tillman Scholars make an impact. And this year, our scholars And our speakers look at the parallels between elite athletes and military veterans, the need to include behavioral analysis in the financial planning, and how to support older adults by combating ageism. While these are disparate topics, one critical theme runs through them, and it's the importance of supporting people through transitions and change. So our first Make Your Mark talk will be presented by Dr. Karen Gallagher, who's a 2016 Tillman Scholar and an Army veteran. After completing her doctoral degree at ASU, go Devils, Karen joined the Global Sport Institute, where she is now a senior researcher. Her work focuses on elite athletes in the post-sport journey and how it aligns with the experiences of military veterans in the military to civilian transition. Karen joins us today from her home in Arizona. Karen, we're so very happy that you're here with us today. And here is her talk, The Game Will End.
No one prepared me or Brett Favre for leaving the game. Now, I know what you're thinking. What does a 5'1" woman have in common with a Hall of Fame quarterback? My foreclosed identity, of course. When I left my all-girls Catholic high school and ran away to join the Army, I didn't just leave my life behind. In a lot of ways, I left myself, my civilian self. I took on a new identity, one that was necessary for my success, my survival. Yes, I was still a short girl from SoCal with a sardonic sense of humor, but that's a description, not an identity. My identity became soldier, paratrooper. Like many of you, I underwent intense training to transform every facet of myself into a soldier. Deploying further invested me and further bonded me to my Army sisters and brothers. Whether you served 3 years or 30 years, your entire adult identity becomes this military identity. But military service ends. It always ends, and it's always hard. Some of us didn't want to leave the military, but had to for one reason or another. Some of us couldn't wait to ETS, counting down the days with a short timer's attitude to the sheer annoyance of anyone within earshot. 18 days and a wake up. Yet almost none of us found this so-called freedom easy or resembling anything we had imagined. I call this the trauma of freedom. I'll explain. I lived this struggle in my own transition. I went from front line to front door and enrolled in college where I promptly got lost. I spoke to no one. I didn't relate to them. I wasn't one of them. I didn't feel like I belonged. The traumas that we experience during military service can be buffered by the strong bonds of sisterhood and brotherhood and the high degree of structure that provides some predictability. Once removed from these intense relationships and meaningful service, veterans can often face delayed consequences, affecting their health, their cognition, their overall wellness. Instead of preparing these veterans for inevitable feelings of loss and uncertainty, we wait for the consequences and then attempt to treat those consequences. Now, don't get me wrong, I am grateful for the strides we're making in mental health treatments. That work needs to continue. But the trauma of freedom is also real. Transition from military service is inevitable, yet we do little to prepare women and men for this emotional experience, for what's coming, the sense of loss and uncertainty, and that sense of loss and uncertainty is normal. So what does all of this have to do with Brett Favre? I mean, the fame and monetary gain obtained from high-level athletic achievement seems like a far cry from the modest nature and modest income of military service. However, my research has shown that though these two pathways seem very different, they intersect strongly in how they affect identity and in how they end. Elite athletes typically take on their identities as athletes at a very young age. And that identity follows them throughout their lifetime and it forecloses their thinking to life after the game ends. I mean, I have heard professional athletes and coaches talk about needing the athlete to remain exclusively invested in their identity as an athlete as a necessary component of winning. I mean, how can we have them think about leaving the game in the very moment we need them invested and believing that they will continue to win and succeed? This fusion of who they are with what they do does not prepare them for life after the game. And the game will end. It always ends, and it's always hard. When it ends, either military service or elite athletic careers, there's a sense of loss of bonds, of sisterhood and brotherhood, loss of purpose, and ultimately loss of identity. Yet preparation for leaving the military or elite level athletics is focused on more concrete components, like accessing benefits, financial management, or vocational pursuits. There's little to no preparation for the social emotional elements. See, I would never send somebody to a totally unfamiliar place, wait for them to get lost, and only then send help. So why don't we prepare military service members and athletes for this foreseeable, inevitable transition experience? What if we gave them the map up front? What if we normalized it? My work focuses on developing measures to better understand the impact of uncertainty and loss of identity and variables that can impact growth and wellness in veterans and transitioning athletes. For example, I have found that in both of these populations, higher tolerance for uncertainty predicts some really important things like grade point average, better decision-making, less anxiety, higher wellness scores. If we understand which factors promote resilience and which predict poor outcomes in transition, we can develop structured pre-transition programs that prepare individuals and normalize the transition experience. For example, in medicine, we talk about discharge starts on admission, right? We start preparing patients and planning for their next level of care as soon as they're admitted. The British Army does this. They prepare for discharge on admission. We need to advocate for planning our civilian futures as soon as we start becoming our military selves. See, you may not know when the game will end. You may not even know it has ended after it has ended, but you do know that it will end, but you won't end. Let's start handing out the maps.
Thank you, Karen. That was insightful. It's important research. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Powerful. Our next speaker, Dr. Michael Kothakota, looks at another challenge in which not just veterans, but many Americans struggle to understand: personal finance. Mike, a 2013 Tillman Scholar and an Army veteran, earned his MS in predictive analytics from Northwestern University and a PhD from Kansas State. He now runs Wolfbridge Wealth, which is a research-based financial planning firm. He argues that there are no one-size-fits-all solutions for financial planning. What's needed instead is an individualized approach focused on your needs and wants, the past, present, and future. We'll now cut live to Mike, live from his home in North Carolina for his talk, Making Personal Finance Work for You. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Alex. Financial advice isn't one size fits all. American finances don't match the ideal state. We have difficulty prioritizing spending and savings, and that's usually because we don't know what our own priorities are. So there's this disconnect between our needs and our wants and our ability to manage finances. And that gap isn't easily bridged without sufficient effort. And even then, we don't fully grasp what will work best for ourselves. So one of the reasons some researchers think we have so much trouble managing our finances is because of this concept of mental scarcity. And that's the inability to manage your finances because you have too much other stuff going on, and it makes it difficult to think. There's also an instinct people feel about money and how to decide what it's used for. And the decisions made tend to be suboptimal because people don't understand their full financial life. So let's look at two people the same age, Em and Alex. They're both 30 years old. They have different careers. Em is an engineer earning about $80,000 a year, and Alex is a social worker earning $40,000 a year. But they have the same credit score, same amount of debt. And if you're interested, they're both single. They also just both inherited $5,000. And so they're thinking, what should I do with that money? Should I pay down debt? Should I invest it? Put it in a savings account? Save for a down payment on a house? These are big questions. And for many people, they look to experts for answers. So they might call into the Susie Orman show. They might sign up for Dave Ramsey's newsletter, or they might tune into Mad Money to get stock advice. And some people may go to see a financial advisor, a term that effectively has no meaning because anybody can call themselves one. Susie Orman will advise you to do anything that might improve your FICO score without knowing whether you actually need to improve it. She might tell both Em and Alex that they need to pay down their debt in order to free up available credit to boost that FICO score. Dave Ramsey's probably going to give you some of the same advice and tell you to pay down your debt and that debt is bad. So his advice will mirror Susie's, but for different reasons. Jim Cramer is going to pace around the room. He's going to punch the air, and he's going to shout at you to buy some stock. And both Alex and Em will be buying the next stock to crash if they follow his advice. So there's a problem with getting advice from either financial celebrities or even regular financial advisors, and that's bias. So they're supposed to get to know you and figure out what you want and how to help you get there. Some are really good at matching your financial situation to stated goals that you have, but their biases still play a role in the advice they give. You know what it doesn't do? It doesn't take into account your personal money story. I'll tell you a quick story about what that might mean and how to paint the picture. When I was a kid, we didn't have a lot of money. My dad was in the Army and my mom worked at Sears in the paint department. My brother and I used to love to go to the movies, but like now, popcorn was very expensive. So my mom used to hide a bag of popcorn in her purse, one of these giant purses. And so I was always worried that we'd get caught and thrown out. And I'd get this anxiety about it. So now I make sure that if I'm going to go to the movies, I have enough money to pay for popcorn and maybe a drink at the theater. I receive a certain pleasure from it. It's not an outsized expense, but that expense is discretionary and popcorn is expensive. So most financial advice then doesn't take into account the total of you, past, present, and future. A financial planner will say, well, this expense isn't needed or excessive. So because even though you know this expense is the result of something from your past, you must eliminate it because it doesn't fit in with traditional financial dogma about spending and saving. And that advisor will say, this is not in your best interests. But what are your best interests? Financial advisors have a habit of dividing things into wants and needs, or if they want to be fancy, discretionary and non-discretionary. They deprioritize the wants and fail to consider the impact that this will have on your quality of life. We need and we want, but they are tied together. So we need to optimize how we think about financial matters, not letting my biases or anybody else's biases keep you from doing what's best for you. Now, the math is complex, so we won't go into it here, but consider a situation where you're playing a game. We'll call it the game of financial planning. Now, you're the only player, and each of your decisions affects multiple aspects of your financial plan. And these plans are affected in different time frames, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years from now. Each decision is based upon an ever-changing set of values, needs, and desires that evolve with these time frames. This sounds complex, but life is complex. And any advice or decision made about your life is likely to involve these myriad of decisions. So let's figure out the best place to put this money for you, not the best place to put the money for what I think you need, or what Dave Ramsey thinks you need, or what Susie Orman thinks you need, and definitely not what Jim Cramer thinks you need. If we can incorporate the total self, past, present, and future into our personal finances, it'll go a long way in making life better for everybody.
It is an honor and a privilege to introduce you all to a fellow veteran, Tillman scholar, and my West Point classmate and friend, Jackie Munn. I've known Jackie since we entered the academy in 2004, and she has always been a humble leader who truly represents the values of service and scholarship. She is a 2015 Tillman Scholar, which already makes her a part of one of the best classes, and I'm not biased at all, I just might happen to be a part of that class. But seriously, she took her military uniform off, furthered her education, and continues to serve as a public health nurse practitioner. She cares for those who are in the greatest need of healthcare, like our low-income and non-insured citizens. She serves in the public health department, where she manages records for first responders and public safety officers. When there is danger threatening our families, communities, and our country, veterans march toward it. Jackie did that in and out of uniform. During this pandemic, she has helped serve her community in Arlington County, Virginia, trying to stem the spread of the coronavirus through education and contact tracing. The former Army captain is not unlike other parents who are skillfully navigating work and a son who is virtually going to school. As she works to build the next generation, she does it in the spirit of Pat Tillman, service beyond self. Jackie's training has equipped her well in the fight for others. She is who we need on the front lines during this pandemic, and I say that as a mayor who has worked alongside our first responders and healthcare professionals every day throughout this pandemic. We thank her for her service and dedication, from one Make Your Mark Award recipient to another, well deserved. It is my honor to be introducing you to the 2020 recipient of the Make Your Mark Award, so please join me in welcoming my friend, Jackie Munn. Jackie Munn.
Thank you, Adrian, for that kind introduction. First, I'd like to start by thanking Marie Tillman. On behalf of our community, thank you for your leadership and for your continued service and support. In her book, The Letter, Marie shared a story about Pat and a simple act of kindness. While they lived in Tacoma, Washington, Marie and Pat often parked their car at a nearby bluff, climbing down a steep stairway to go for walks along the beach. One day, the two noticed a fisherman struggling with his net. Without hesitation, Pat climbed onto the man's boat to help him untangle the line. While a seemingly simple act, I argue that those small moments of kindness can fuel the world and create a positive ripple effect of hope and change. That simple moment of kindness radiates throughout the entire Pat Tillman Foundation and through the 695 Tillman scholars who represent this community. In 2012, I worked alongside teams of Green Berets in Afghanistan as a member of the Cultural Support Teams, a program that selected and trained women to deploy with special operations units so we could interact with the 50% of the population that was inaccessible to these elite all-male units. At the time, I wasn't a nurse and had very limited medical knowledge and experience. During my deployment, I met 4 midwives in a sparsely supplied medical clinic in a remote village on the outskirts of the Afghan-Pakistan border, 3 hours northeast from where Pat died. For those who may not know, Afghanistan has one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the world, a result of limited access to care, or access to care that is often rudimentary. The clinic outside my outpost was lucky to have trained midwives and equipment like ultrasound machines. One day, I watched as the midwives performed an ultrasound on a pregnant mother of 2. Her children sat on the cold tiled floors while eating from a bag of chips, while the mother shivered from exposing her pregnant belly. I had no prenatal medical training that could help these women, but I saw that the woman's teeth were chattering, so I took off my thick headscarf and I draped it across her chest. It was a simple act, but something that made me feel useful and was something that made her smile and say, "Manana," or "Thank you." That moment inspired me to act. 4 years later, I graduated from nursing school, earning my master's degree from Vanderbilt University and becoming a certified family nurse practitioner. Today, I work at a public health department in the DC area, caring for pregnant women, many who are immigrants from the Northern Triangle of Central America. Like Afghanistan, many of these women faced extreme forms of violence, several fleeing from places like El Salvador, known as one of the countries with the highest rates of femicide in Latin America. Armed with medical knowledge, I now feel better equipped to help these women navigate their pregnancies. My job has also given me the opportunity to help my county's public health response to combat the pandemic. On contact tracing calls, I listened as members of my community talked to spike fevers, chills, coughs, and malaise. Several of my pregnant patients got COVID-19, all worried about their babies and their families, many who were essential workers, men and women who keep America functioning, but also often receive shallow praise and fleeting recognition. So today, I'd like to thank them and a few others. To start, I would like to thank the Pat Tillman Foundation, my fellow scholars, and our donors. I'm honored to be selected as this year's Make Your Mark awardee. I would like to share this award with my public health department and our essential workers for doing the grueling and tough work to keep our neighborhoods safe and everyone's lives functioning. I'd also like to share this with all the mothers out there, many who are simultaneously balancing careers while helping their children navigate school. This award especially belongs to military spouses. For me, being a service member was easy. Being a military spouse was one of the hardest and most invisible challenges of my life. So to our military spouses out there, I see you. This is for you. This award also belongs to the peacemakers, protesters, citizens, and Tillman scholars championing racial justice and equality because Black lives matter. And rightfully, this award belongs to advocates like John Stewart and John Feal, who champion just change. It also belongs to my fellow Tillman scholars who show up to work and school every day, doing their best, especially when times are rough. And it belongs to the village that helps care for my family, to our nanny, my colleagues, my friends, and my parents. Mom and Dad, thank you for teaching me that attitude is everything, and that one act of kindness can make the world a better place. I love you both. And personally, this belongs to my boys, to my husband and best friend. I'm grateful for the love that we've built together. It certainly isn't fragile. I'm thankful that together we can love and support one another as we each pursue our wild and various passions. I love you always and forever. And lastly, but most importantly, this award belongs to my son, my wonderful, thoughtful, kind Lego building son. You are my reason, and you are my everything and my greatest pride. Having to parent solo for many months at a time, our life doesn't always look award-winning. Dishes and laundry pile up, meals are lackluster, and sometimes we get outside, but often we're stuck inside because mom has to work. Regardless, my son reminds me that none of that really matters. Being his mother has taught me that our greatest hope for our future and for humanity relies on expressing gratitude daily and by demonstrating love and kindness whenever we're able. To close, I'd like to offer one final story and one last thought. Before one of my husband's work trips, he taught our son how to make coffee. So most mornings, my 5-year-old son wakes up and makes the perfect pot of coffee just for me. It's a simple gesture, but one that grounds me in love. So whether it's teaching our children to help others, or making a cup of coffee for someone, or giving a warm scarf to a cold pregnant woman, or helping a fisherman untangle his lines, our greatest gift to one another is the kindness we have to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. I greatly appreciate your words and the challenge, not only to our scholars, but to all of us. Those simple acts of kindness, as you said, make all the difference. And Jackie's been part of our community since 2015. And one thing I'm always struck by her is her humble leadership. And that's true for all our scholars. And make no mistake, Jackie and the role that she did in the military, she's a badass. So it's true for all of our scholars. And earlier this year, as the pandemic raged and Jackie balanced her personal and professional responsibilities, she also wrote very powerfully in essays for the Washington Post about how social distancing reminded her of the camaraderie and challenges of deployment and the need for compassion during contact tracing. And it's in that sense of empathy and service beyond self that we find true leadership. Thank you again, Jackie, and congratulations on your 2020 Make Your Mark Award. A sense of service beyond self also drives our final Make Your Mark presenter today, 2018 Tillman Scholar, Emcee Balog. And after leaving the Air Force, Emcee worked as an occupational therapist with a focus on older adults before embarking on a PhD at George Washington University in the emerging field called translational health science. In her talk, Ageism in America, Emcee explains how confronting ageist stereotypes leads to better outcomes for older adults across our communities. Emcee will now join us from her home in New Jersey. Emcee, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks, Alex. Old people are weak and frail. They're sick and confused. No, old people are wealthy. They're wise old owls. Okay, boomer. Stereotypes about older adults and age-related issues run rampant in the United States. They range from the sick, demented grandma to the hip, fit grandpa. They reinforce ageism in both directions by creating assumptions about the way older people should be and act upon a certain age. But what does this mean for the wellness of older adults? How do stereotypes affect their quality of life? How does ageism influence nursing home admissions? By the year 2035, older adults are projected to outnumber children for the first time in United States history. In 2019, every baby boomer reached the age of 55. They are a different cohort in a different America than generations of the past. They have higher divorce rates, many are childless, and those with children are the sandwich generation, stressed between aging parents and personal commitments. Overall, older adults are likely to live alone and participate less in their communities. According to the CDC, 8 out of 10 older adults have at least one chronic condition. Population statistics tell us that baby boomers are more likely to live longer, and our advancements in medicine enable them to do so even with chronic disease and disability. For those who need assistance, traditionally, families took on these caregiving roles. However, these generational changes and statistical projections have created a costly long-term care model that will not support this rapid growth and change. Baby boomers with comorbidities are even more at risk for institutionalization, yet they overwhelmingly desire to remain in their homes and communities safely, independently, and comfortably, regardless of age, income, or ability level. This is called aging in place. You've heard the adage, it takes a village to raise a child. And now we must extend this supportive mindset to older adults in our communities. A village approach where we can lean on each other and our communities for support. After my enlistment in the Air Force, and for the past 15 years, I've been working as an occupational therapist specializing in geriatrics. More recently, I've embarked on a PhD in translational health science. My work centers on the process of turning community observations into interventions that improve the health of individuals and the public. More specifically, I explore the ways in which older adults are empowered to meaningfully engage in society. What does meaningful engagement in society have to do with ageist stereotypes and nursing homes? The way we think and speak about older adults impacts the creation of policies and services that can support aging in place. Engaging older adults to participate in policy development is critical. It is the needed ingredient for the prevention of institutionalization. Participation is associated with quality of life, active aging, and is a cornerstone to aging in place. Older adults need to be able to function not only in their homes, but also in their communities. especially if they are to curb isolation, which, fun fact, carries the same health risk as smoking a pack a day. And yet getting older adults to participate in society isn't as easy as you'd think. Communities often cater to the young and able-bodied. Broken sidewalks, short crosswalk times, and buildings with stairs are just some of the ways that prevent older adults from coming out and participating. But that's just the built environment. Information about available services and age-appropriate activities are often not centrally located or easy to understand. Volunteering and civic participation is at an all-time low. Now couple this with ageist attitudes, and you have a recipe to keep older adults isolated and ignored. Without an aging-friendly society, we perpetuate a cycle of ageism that prevents communities, older adults, and all people from achieving their fullest possibility. So what does this mean for you? The one thing that connects us all together at the Pat Tillman Foundation is our desire to strengthen our communities through our continued service. The health issues and social complexities that we experience today will not be solved by a single person and a fantastical scientific discovery like we've seen in the past. We need to think about and conduct science differently. Utilizing, supporting, and funding team science, implementation science, community action research, and translational health science are some of the ways we can invest in this change. What does translational health science in communities look like? In my view, the creation of programs and services for older adults, by older adults, with their communities. And that means you. So the next time you're involved in a community endeavor, take a look at who's around you. Is the group diverse in not only race and gender, but also age? Be an advocate for aging-friendly communities in physical and social environments. Squash ageist attitudes and help to promote services that keep older adults from feeling like a burden. Help your older neighbors and family in areas that they may need you, and let them help you too. Change what it looks like to age in place and community, because someday this work will affect you and the older adult in your life.
Thank you so much, Emily, for those remarks and for your work. Next, I'd like to talk about the Tillman Champion Award, which is given annually to an individual or individuals who are living our values of scholarship, service, humble leadership, and impact in the world. This award is meant to celebrate Pat's living legacy and the belief that we should always strive to be something bigger than ourselves. In a world today dominated by a seemingly endless stream of negative news, whether it's the impact of a global pandemic on our families and our lives, to the consistent reminder that we're not doing enough to make justice equally available for Black and Brown Americans. Examples of selfless service feel hard to come by, but they're out there. The idea that we are a single and united country, the idea that we all owe our successes in part to those around us, lives on in many and offers a beacon of hope. On September 12th, 2001, in talking about his respect for the values our flag stands for, Pat shared some thoughts which were in our opening video, but bear repeating. He said, in times like this, you stop and think about not only how good we have it, but what kind of a system we live under, what freedoms were allowed, and that wasn't built overnight. He said that a lot of his family has gone and fought in wars, and he said he hadn't really done a damn thing as far as laying himself on the line like that. And so he had a great deal of respect for those that had. In John Feal and John Stewart, we see an example of tenacious respect for those that have laid themselves on the line for our country, for our values, for us, from first responders to service members who deployed to combat zones. In 2010, Feal and Stewart teamed up to advocate for the more than 70,000 first responders who ran toward the need in September of 2001. Out of those 70,000, 32,000 have developed respiratory diseases, and 9,000 have suffered from some form of cancer. Tragically, nearly 1,500 have died as a result of their efforts. In the years after 9/11, it became clear that our federal government wasn't going to step up and support healthcare for those first responders, many of whom had their lives dramatically changed that day and who continue to live with the impacts. Feal and Stewart began a full-on campaign to bring attention to this cause, to give a platform for those first responders to share their stories, and to pressure lawmakers to just do what was right. After more than 9 years, in 2019, Congress passed the September 11th Victim Compensation Fund that permanently funded support for 9/11 first responders the day after John Stewart testified. Their efforts comprise of all of the individual meetings, notes, research, travel, emails, and phone calls that resulted in over 1,700 appointments with lawmakers on Capitol Hill by Feal, himself an Army veteran and 9/11 first responder who lost part of his foot in the cleanup work. This work offers an example of how daily resolve, unrelenting persistence, and attention to detail can have a big impact. When asked about his work, John Feal said, "Most people in America have something that they believe in. They have a cause, and everybody should have a cause that they believe in. But a lot of them don't want to go to their state capital or their nation's capital because they don't think they're going to get anywhere." Well, he said, he has a mindset different of others because they work for us. The chairs that they put their butts in, he used a little bit more colorful language, the pens that they use, the pads that they write on, we pay for that. That's us, and they work for us. Feal and Stewart didn't know whether it would take 1 year or 10, and they didn't care whether someone acknowledged them one day for a success that was never certain, but they committed themselves to a cause because it was right. And as they've had successes, they've pivoted to helping others in need, namely veterans suffering from burn pit respiratory injuries. For this, we honor them as our 2020 Tillman Honors champions. John Feal, John Stewart, thank you for your selfless efforts, and thank you for offering a living example of humility and service. Your work is a wonderful reflection on the values that drive us and drive the living legacy of Pat Tillman. Please join me in welcoming back and honoring John Feal and John Stewart.
Thank you, Dan.
Are you going to talk, John? I got to fix my thing.
Yeah. I want to start off by saying congratulations to Jackie. And since I've gotten to know her, I am in awe of this woman. What she's accomplished is just amazing. I also want to thank Maria and the Tillman family and the Tillman Foundation, and everybody, the scholars who think John and I are worthy of this award. And I would love to put this on my shelf, but I'm not worthy of this because I didn't do anything yet. And hopefully next year when we get a piece of legislation passed, then I will proudly display this amongst my other awards. But you're honoring us for past work. And I work by what have you done for me lately. And while we've helped the 9/11 community and continue to help the 9/11 community, we got a lot of work left ahead of us for the veteran community who are affected by the burn pits. You speaking earlier, and I keep thinking about how Pat walked away from $3.6 million to join the service to fight for his country with patriotism and with tenacity. And that's how I approach DC. And while I never bring anything other to the table than tenacity and the ability not to accept no for an answer, because human life is at stake, I am the most blessed man today and the most humble man today in America because I'm being mentioned in the same sentence as Pat Tillman and John Stewart. And while my dear friend, who's probably just as humble or more humble than me, we don't do this for accolades or awards or attention. We do this because we know we have a responsibility. And everybody today, the scholars, the award winner, everybody's got a responsibility. And at the end of the day, as human beings, before anything, we have responsibilities to help those less fortunate. And that's truly the spirit of the human being. And I can speak here for hours about our responsibility, but to be able to say that I was honored by the Pat Tillman Foundation, this is one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me. So I want to thank everybody because this does mean the world to me, but I have not done enough to achieve this award yet, because next year we're going to get into a fist fight with Congress. That's a given. And I hope next year when you award somebody else, not only will I like to participate, but I'd also like to make a donation to the Tillman Foundation to award that next scholar, but to be able to see who the champion is next year and be able to tell our story that John and I licked our wounds after beating Congress, the DOD, and the VA for hundreds of thousands of veterans, men and women, uniform and non-uniform, who are putting their own lives at risk. And we need to do better as a nation and as human beings. We need to do better than saying just thank you. Because like John said a couple weeks ago, it's paper patriotism. And while nobody does it with, nobody's being malicious when they say thank you or they're being callous, it's shallow. Those thank yous are shallow, and it's like we're programmed to say thank you for your service. But to truly be thankful and to truly be thankful for an accepted award, we have to do more and we have to do better. And when I leave here today, and when I get off of this panel and this conference and this Zoom call, I plan on doing better. And next week when we're in DC, I'm going to take the same tenacity that Pat had on the football field and the battlefield. And I'm going to let Washington, DC know. I'm going to let Congress know. I'm going to let the Senate know. I'm going to let whoever know who's the president that John Feal's here, the Feel Good Foundation's here, and we're not going away. And we're going to beat you again on your turf. So I want to say thank you. And from the bottom of my heart, and the top and the side and the middle, my whole heart, thank you so much for this. It means the world. So thank you.
That was lovely. John, I want to thank, sorry about the thing behind me. It fell, and I'm in my kid's old playroom, so there's a chalkboard there and it looks ridiculous. Thank you so much for this, and I want to thank Marie and Dan and everybody at the Tillman Foundation. Boy, what an impressive group of individuals you all are. Pat said, be something bigger than yourself. And I think for John Feal and I, that's easy because combined we are, I think, 4'9". I think that's combined. That's if you add our heights together. John is being very humble. I want to speak mostly in my time because John said something that I think in his humility is slightly incorrect, which is that he doesn't deserve this. He hasn't done anything yet. He doesn't deserve the Tillman Award. And I want to talk a little bit about John Feal and why I think it's so appropriate that he received this award and how he inspires me. Because he really does. And John and I have known each other for 10 years and we're dear friends now and we love each other. And it's been an incredible relationship. It's easy for me. I get attention. I was on television. Like, I think it was in the early 1930s, I believe, is when I was on television. It's a vague memory, a little hazy, but I think that's when I was on television. But I get things that I don't deserve all the time. That's what it means to be in show business. You're given things. I have a doctorate. My alma mater gave me a doctorate to just go down there and thank them. People working 7 years on dissertations to get a doctorate. I just walk in there 5 minutes. Hey, everybody, I'm a doctor. John Feal's earned it. And he embodies Pat in a lot of different ways. And I want to sort of, number one, making the most of your opportunity. Pat was, I think, a 7th round draft pick, in the 200s. And if you know anything about football, that's not the area of the draft where they're expecting a whole hell of a lot. And a couple of picks down in the 7th round is called Mr. Irrelevant. It's the last pick in the draft, and it's sort of a moniker that they've given there. But he took that opportunity, right? There's not a 1st round draft pick. There's not a 2nd round draft pick. This is not somebody who comes in on a golden, carpet to do that. It's somebody that's got to work and prove themselves. And that's John Feal. He was just a guy working down at ground zero in the construction trades who found himself getting hurt. And he realized that the people down there weren't being taken care of and that there were a lot of folks down there that were getting sick. And, he started the foundation not to create this giant legislative change, but just to help people pay rent, to help people pay their groceries because they were really struggling because they'd become ill and there was nothing backing them up. But the point of it is, he made the most of an opportunity. And the second thing is, I think that he met the moment. You know, sometimes it's difficult. Oftentimes your calling doesn't come through an epiphany. It's not the skies open up and they say, start a foundation and help the 9/11 responders. You know, in the way that Pat met the moment after 9/11, John met the moment after 9/11 in very different ways, and certainly, you know, in a quieter one. But when John lost half his foot down there, and, you know, he went through his own health struggles and his own mental health struggles, he realized how many other people were experiencing that very same thing. And that's what action really is all about. It's making the most of your opportunities and meeting a moment. And in those, so many people allow those moments and those opportunities to slip by. But through John's tenacity and compassion and humanity, he made the most of the opportunity, and he met that moment post 9/11. And personally, I think that's incredibly rare. And that's why I find him so inspiring, and in the way that I find Pat inspiring. And the final thing that I'll leave is simply this: for all the Tillman scholars and for John Feal, there is, and rightfully so, a mythology around Pat. He is this larger than life character who went from a 7th round draft pick to being, you know, this incredible all-pro safety, and then, you know, joining the military and heading to Afghanistan, all those things. And there are statues of him outside of stadiums, and rightfully so. But the lesson here is, he wasn't a superhero. He was a man, just a regular man, like we are, with the ability to take what he's been given and make the most of it, to make the most of the opportunity and to meet the moment with compassion, with tenacity, with grace, with humility. And that's why I'm so honored to be here today to speak to the Tillman scholars, because opportunities and moments are going to present themselves in your lives, and don't let those moments overwhelm you. Don't ever feel like those moments are too big for you or you're not enough, because you create your own legacy with that, as Pat did. He wasn't ordained to be this figure. He was just a man like us, who saw an opportunity, who met a moment, and who did the best he could and made something bigger than himself out of his life. And I feel like my wonderful friend John Feal does that and strives to do that on a daily basis. And that's why I'm so grateful for his friendship and so honored to be with him in receiving this award. And also so excited to see what the Tillman scholars are going to be doing, because I think this group are the type of individuals that are meeting that challenge, that are meeting those opportunities and meeting those moments. And I'm really excited to see you're an impressive group of individuals. And so thank you so much to the Tillman Foundation. Thank you very much to John Feal, who I want to make it very clear, taller than. I am easily 2 inches taller than he is. And I want to thank Alex Garwood, who in between John Feal and I looks like Thor. It really looks like Thor. And I look like, I don't
So I'm supposed to wrap this up, so I have to interrupt you, Dr. Stewart. I apologize for that. And I don't think any of us here have any doubt whatsoever that John Feal and John Stewart are going to go. I would not want to be Congress. So thank you thank you for your activism, your energy, and your tireless efforts in fighting for those who didn't hesitate when called upon to serve their country, whether as 9/11 first responders like you, John, or members of our armed forces or military spouses. So on behalf of our foundation our leadership, our board of directors, you truly define what it means to be a champion. And champion was one of Pat's favorite words. And you guys really are champions, as are our scholars. So Pat's legacy called upon thousands of people to this type of action, emphasizing not just scholarship, but impact, humble leadership, service. We've heard the importance of those values today, and I'm reminded of something Pat wrote in his journal from basic training, and it seems relevant today. I will suffer through the bad for the heights of the good. I will suffer through the bad for the heights of the good. And as a co-founder and board member, as Pat's friend and a supporter, and frankly, as a citizen, I'm proud to be part of the mission that supports and develops these remarkable individuals who are committed to carrying on his legacy, Pat's legacy, and fighting through the bad, so much of which we've experienced this year, but to achieve the heights of the good. As we all know, the best is yet to come. And that brings us to the end of Tillman Honors. Before we close, I want to thank everyone who helped make this event possible. The staff at the Tillman Foundation, you are phenomenal. Thank you to all of our speakers. Marie, you're awesome. Dan, Karen, Mike, Emily, thank you for your powerful Make Your Mark talks. And to our honorees, Jackie, you are incredible. And John Feal and Dr. John Stewart, thank you. Thank you for inspiring us to embrace tenacity and passion and fighting to make the world a better place every day. And to our sponsors, we appreciate your support in advance of our mission and in holding today's event. And finally, thanks to you all for joining us today, all of you here on this Zoom call. Your support today and the years ahead continue to help us grow this community of leaders, and now numbering almost 695. And so whether this was your first Tillman Honors or an annual event you'll never miss, we appreciate your support in our mission so that we can collectively continue to make our mark and lead through action. Thank you.